Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Language Worker. And I have a repeat offender today. So, Laura Jones has been my guest before, but we were surrounded by other lady professionals, uh, also in the beauty, luxury, fashion domain. But this time I decided to talk to Laura to come back to the podcast because one of the things that happened when we stopped recording the other time was that I could feel that Laura was all prepared to talk about the ins and outs, the behind the scenes, the prepping, the knowledge that you need to have, all the extra things that you do that are not all fun in games in order to be able to be the great professional that she is in her area, right? So I decided to just bring Laura back and go a little bit deeper into the bones of this métier, right? So before we're not going to dwell on Laura's background and all that because we already have that in the other episode, which I will link below. But I would love to start by asking Laura to do a little bit of an introduction and then her very curious, I think, hands-on background before beauty and fashion were words for you. They were actually something else, right? So just a little bit about that. Thank you so much for being here once again, Laura Jones.
Well, hello, thank you for inviting me back. So I'm Laura. I'm a specialist beauty translator. I'm based in Wales in the UK, and I've been translating for 6 or 7 years now. So I market myself as a specialist beauty and lifestyle translator, but I also cover fields such as fashion, luxury, tourism. So quite a broad range of areas, but beauty is my sort of my passion.
Mhm.
Um, so I fell into beauty translation completely by mistake at random. I had no idea you could specialize in beauty and cosmetics when I started out, but what happened was the one of my first translation agencies based in Spain, they had a beauty brand that was a little bit awkward that they'd been working with for a while, and the company weren't quite happy with the translations they were getting. So they sent me a test piece, which I translated. They were happy with, came back, carried on translating for this brand, and then over maybe 3 or 4 years, I translated for other Spanish beauty brands too. So for a long time, I'd say beauty translation probably accounted for like 75–80% of my translation work, which was amazing because I really enjoyed it. So I don't have any background in beauty. I'm just a huge beauty fan. So that kind of helped me with terminology, understanding concepts and things, because I think there's nothing better in your work than if you enjoy what you're translating about, if you're already interested in it. So um yeah, that's it basically. I fell into it completely by accident, but I took to it like a duck to water, and I love it. I haven't looked back.
So how do you actually, like I always say, every job prepares you for the next job, obviously, but
Mhm.
how do you actually manage this? What I understand is like an intersection between health,
Yeah.
right? Somehow fashion, knowledge of colors, terminology, knowledge of textile textures, because you also I saw it on your profile that you are actually also do fashion and jewelry and then interior design and all that. So I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my god, yes, it's luxury, but and I can imagine
Yeah.
how these apply in luxury, right? But at the same time I'm like, oh my god, this is like a super wide range of possibilities. So how do you go about preparing yourself, or how do you're like, okay, Laura, today we're launching a new brand, because it's like there's a lot of marketing included, obviously, because even if you perform, I don't know if it's brochures, websites, whatever it is, there's always that part of marketing. So you kind of have to be a specialist in marketing, blah blah blah, translation, beauty, and all of it, right? Architecture. So how does that happen?
Yeah, I know it's a lot, right? But I think um all of us, all of us translators, we often dabble in other areas, not just our main area, or we may have several specialisms. Um, again, these are all areas I enjoy. I mean, I love interior design, so it comes easy to me translating and writing about it. I read a lot in my spare time. Whether that's magazines, books, online, I'm interested, so I'm constantly learning, constantly researching,
Mhm.
albeit, unconsciously. I don't see it as work. I'm just reading and learning. I love learning. So I mean, in terms of the marketing thing, I think it's really important to communicate well with your clients, right? You need to find out what they want to achieve, what their values are as a company.
Mhm.
Through your translation, then you need to sort of, put that across. You need to replicate their tone of voice, their style. So yeah, I mean, it's all about what we do is communicate, right? But we need to communicate with our clients as well, I think, to get the best possible outcomes. Um, yeah, there's so many sort of strands and things to what we do, and a lot of it we do without even thinking.
Yeah.
It's And with every job you do, every project you work on, you learn something new so you can apply it to the next one. Um, so yeah, it's it's a fascinating job. It really is. No 2 days are the same, and I feel like I'm constantly learning. And yeah, sorry, I've lost my train of
So,
thought.
so the so for all of that, right? Since you do all sorts of different things, but they're all the same. It's like me, right? That's the way I see the world. Yes, I do all sorts of different things, but they are the same one to me, right? So that there's a line that puts all of this together in our minds, and that's how
Mm.
we operate, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
how do you decide what you're going to do in terms of CPD, in terms of your continuing education? How do you
mm,
decide on that since you have such a wide variety of things to choose from? Do you focus more on the technical part, as in the CAT tools, the evolution, the introduction of AI, whatever they, they throw at you, right? Or
yeah,
refining your workflow if you have direct clients,
mm,
or there's other moments where you have to focus on terminology and all that. So it's because I'm sure that reading for pleasure helps a lot, and I know it does,
mm,
right? But I'm sure that there's projects that they're brand new for you. So how do you equip yourself with all sorts of strategies in order to be able
yeah.
to cope with the new challenges?
Well, it varies, right? I mean, it's in my mind, I sort of have ideas of things I'd like to achieve or learn about through the year. And one skill I'd really like to sort of improve on, because I have very basic knowledge, is subtitling. This is something that an additional service I'd like to offer in the future. So for me, there's
For the
things
same client, you mean? So within those realms.
potentially or others. I mean, some of my agency clients have asked me if I do offer subtitling, and I've had to, reject projects just because at the moment I don't have the skills. And until I sort of reach a baseline sort of competence, then I don't want to actually offer it to a client. But in terms of my sort of fields of expertise, then my areas, I mean, sometimes you come across a webinar offered by someone, right? It could be another translator, it could be from a particular brand, it could be a webinar or a course aimed at industry specialists then and not at the
Mhm.
translators. So
Exactly.
I do like attending those because you see things from another angle, you delve into the subject. It's not all about the language necessarily. Um I think it's also quite important as translators that we sort of leave the translation bubble then, and that we do go to our client land then, as Chris Durbin would call it. We go to where
Client
our
land.
clients are, and we attend industry events then. So that could be trade shows, and trade shows
Mhm.
are they're really good for if you think of them not as so much as a way of finding clients then, but approach them as a learning opportunity. They're brilliant because often there'll be sort of mini conferences on site. So, you can learn about the industry pain points as well as, the upcoming trends. It's really important to keep on top of, trends because beauty, fashion, it's all very trend led, right? So you need to keep on top of the
Yes.
new terminology, the new concepts, new designs. Um, what else? Yeah, I mean, I
So what
started.
languages tend to be, if you have loads of them, like three or four, so what languages tend to ask you to do what type of project? So is it common to have beauty from French, or does it work like that? Or there's a tendency also there that you receive more work from a particular vertical or area in a particular language? Does it work like that?
Yeah, well, I'm quite unusual in that I have two target languages. So I translate into English and Welsh. Now, the beauty, fashion, luxury is pretty much always Spanish or French to English, never into
Hmm.
Welsh. With my Welsh, it's the areas are broader, it can be business or news or economics. It's a bit broader, just because there's less demand.
And
But
also the pool of translators must be very small, right?
yeah.
Smaller, for
Pool of
sure.
Welsh translators is much smaller. But recently, I mean, the majority of my work has been from French, whereas I started out translating a lot of Spanish text. Now it's mostly French. I mean, we all go through fluxes with our clients, right? You might work with certain companies, certain agencies for a while. Then someone new comes in, then you stop working with the previous clients. It goes through cycles. So at the moment, I'm in a French cycle, but I'd really like to get
French
back
cycle.
to Spanish because I do miss the Spanish.
Yeah. So, I mean, the thing is, when you're preparing yourself to do all of this, right, you have those two languages. So, which one do you tend to go to? Do you read the original materials outside of your work also in those languages a lot, or do you focus a lot more on reading them in English so that you can, you know, get the terminology? Obviously, you have to do both
Yeah.
ways.
I
But do you
tend
actually do that, pay a lot of attention to whatever they do over there in their own real life, not only for the products that you have, but for other products in the same
Yeah, yeah.
similar market?
I mean, in terms of reading for pleasure, it tends to be in English because at the end of the day, I'm tired. I can't focus on French or Spanish anymore. So, but during the day, I subscribe to a few newsletters, industry newsletters in French
Mhm.
or Spanish. So I do try to keep on top of what's going on over there. It's a good way of hearing about companies that might be expanding into the UK, the British market, who potentially I could
Mhm.
target and offer my services. So it is, although, I'm working say the translations I work on, might be targeting the British market. It is very important to see what's going on in France or Spain or Belgium or wherever it may be. To keep an eye on trends, news, anything that could potentially affect my work, whether there's a downturn in the market, everything's connected, right? And it's important to have a good overview, I think, of what's going on.
One of the things that, in my experience, happens is when you translate, for example, into fashion, things like that. One of the problems that we face is that there tends to be a lot more words in English, so a lot more terminology in English that then cannot necessarily be directly applied into Romance languages because somehow our interpretation of those
Yeah.
objects are different. I know this happens in every area, but I think that particularly in the fashion industry and things like that, it's a little bit more in your face.
Mhm.
So, given the fact that you work the other way around, do you also feel this way, or do you feel the opposite, or you're like, oh my God, I have so many choices in English, I don't know what to do?
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of beauty or fashion terms are coined in English. So for me, I suppose my job is a little bit easier. But on the
Mhm.
other hand, if I'm reading a French or Spanish text, say a fashion text, and they're describing a particular a weave of a fabric or
Mhm.
a pattern, it doesn't necessarily if they've used a French or Spanish term translation, it doesn't necessarily match or it's not obvious what the English should be, and that can be quite
Mhm.
problematic. The I think maybe there might be a perception that translating for the beauty or fashion sectors is easy, it's a light, easy topic, but actually it can get extremely technical. So you do need that specialist knowledge of, whether it's active ingredients used in beauty or like I said, patterns or weaves or even
There's
sort of
chemistry in there, right?
stitches. There's chemistry in there, yeah. Stitches in fabric, it gets very, very technical. Even so a few back in May, as part of the Beauty Fashion and Luxury Network, we organised a webinar. We organised a translation slam. So Nikki and I translated a text from Spanish into English. It was a blog post by Tiffany on diamonds, the different cuts of diamonds.
Wow.
And even that, although it was aimed at the public, it was quite technical in places, it talked about the anatomy of the diamond, the different parts of a diamond and words that I hadn't seen before. So, I had to research and it was fascinating. So, these sectors, these specialisms can get very, very technical and you do need to know where to look then for the answers. You need to, find the best resources then to get the terminology right. It's
Mhm.
fascinating.
Is it my impression, or is it true that in the luxury domain, clients tend to be more interested in technical details than for the general public? Let's
Mm.
say that. I have that impression that there's a lot more emphasis on the quality of the fabric. Therefore, you
Yeah.
have to talk about it in a different way, right? Or like you said, the stitches. I mean, why would you talk about it for the common buyer? Right? But I suppose these buyers who are offered uh, multiple options, they probably are not even looking at other types of options that seem obvious to us. So
Mm.
are they more demanding in terms of their knowledge and terminology that you need to nail in order to get even these marketing materials out?
Yeah, they can be. In my experience, luxury brands they're very focused on heritage and sort of protecting, maintaining their image. There's a lot of focus on, yeah, heritage, the history, what's gone before. Um, and they do have each brand has its own tone of voice and they can be very protective about it. But yeah, they do get quite they can get quite involved in the finer details then. And there's a lot of talk about craftsmanship and
Hmm.
prestigious language. It's all, it exudes luxury and they can get very concerned then with the details. And I find as
Hmm.
well with the luxury brands, they are very because they protective of their image and their tone, right? That they can be more involved with the translation, that they may ask for more changes. We don't like how you said this. Maybe you can use this instead, or um this part might be too literal. Could you be, maybe a bit freer? I don't know. They're a bit more maybe discerning in their approach then, a bit more demanding. Yeah.
Mhm. What about in fashion? Because fashion, I mean, not fashion, sorry, in beauty, right? Thinking about beauty products, for example,
Mhm.
how does that translate the same way as in, is it possible to also observe a big difference in the demand for more knowledge to come across to the client when it comes to their products? Because I don't know how much people in general read labels, right? I like reading labels for the obvious reasons, not necessarily for for beauty information or for health information, but for other reasons. So I read a lot of labels. I love them. But I'm wondering if this also comes across in things that you need to put in your body somehow,
Mm,
right? So is it the same way? Do you like have experience with brands like, I don't know, the beauty part or the cosmetics part of Chanel, or even Madonna has beauty products,
mm.
as compared to like a Kiko, or what, a Maybelline or whatever. Maybe it's Maybelline in English, but in Portuguese we call it Maybelline.
Maybelline, we say
Oh,
Maybelline.
oh,
Yeah.
you'd say it. Okay, I wasn't sure. So is there a difference when you translate for a brand like that, even in that specific type of product?
Yeah, again, the luxury brands, even in the beauty products. I mean, I translate quite a lot of press releases for certain fragrance houses. which is fascinating. But again, there's a lot of focus on the heritage, and this new fragrance comes from, our original fragrance in 1950 or whatever it may be, and it's
Ah,
evolved and blah blah blah. But it's all about,
right.
it's poetic language. It's all about the imagery and how it makes the wearer feel. And um, I mean, you do get that across all perfume houses, right? It's very poetic, creative language. It creates a feeling maybe. Whereas the luxury houses then, as I said before, there's a lot of focus on heritage, exclusivity. Whereas the more sort of um the mass market brands then, the 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 cheaper brands, they are far more inclusive. You find, the luxury brands still like to maintain this air of exclusivity and prestige. But in terms of ingredients and things in the beauty industry over the last decade, there's definitely been a shift in transparency because consumers are far more concerned. We're a lot more better informed now. Younger generations, they want to see what's going into the product. Is it sustainable? Is it safe for my body? Is it kind? And so brands have had to adapt in that way. They have to be clear in their language, direct, truthful. They can't be, everything has to be truthful and accurate.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's interesting how the sector has adapted then in its language over the last decade. So it'll be interesting to see how that changes too in the future.
So are there like two or three terms that you can imagine that you need to use basically in every single translation that you work on in beauty? Like, no,
No.
or lines of thought.
Um, I mean, for me, the the language you use will depend on the brands, right?
Mhm.
Every brand has a different tone, a different message, a different product. But
So
for
you don't
me,
feel
it's
something like, oh my God, they all say the same thing in the same way.
no, they don't though. They don't. It's interesting, and it's amazing how you can say one sentence in so many different ways, but they don't. To me, they all sound different, which is
Mm,
important because the market is so saturated now, right? Every brand, every product needs to stand out. Um, the ones I work with anyway, to me, they've all got a definite tone of voice and a definite sort of place in the market then, Um, but no, they don't all say the same things. Obviously, in the marketing materials or on the packaging, they've all got to mention things. You've got to have the name, you've got to have the claims, so what the product does. And
mhm.
there's, certain ways that you have to express that, in English or in whichever language you're translating into, ingredients too. Um, and also, as a beauty translator, the types of texts I work on, they vary. They're very different. They can be, marketing materials, so that can be web copy, social media copy,
Mhm.
brochures, leaflets, or it can be working on the packaging itself. So, and that type of language then is very different to the marketing language. It's short, it's direct, it's truthful, whereas the marketing is far more creative. And then on the other hand, you have the more the business style documents, things that the public won't see. So internal memos, training. I really enjoy translating, for example, beauty protocols. So if
Hmm.
for the
I'm not sure I know
profession,
what that is. So
so
can we have that
for
concept?
you know, f- for professional beauty brands, then it's beauty protocols. Basically, they explain to a beauty therapist how to use these different products to perform a beauty treatment.
Hmm.
So, you
Okay.
cleanse the skin in this way, then you apply the toner, then you do this treatment, you apply this. This is how you do this massage technique. These things, they're fascinating, and it's lovely to have sort of an insight then into how these things work.
I didn't know that the brands were, involved in how the
Yeah,
actual
yeah, yeah.
practitioners will. use the
Yeah.
product itself. Well, I never thought about it that
They can
perspective.
be, and you know, they are very involved. They're very particular. They're very concerned that their products are used in the right way, and you know, quite rightly. But
Yes, it
also,
totally makes sense.
they want all of their customers to have the same experience wherever they are. So if you go for, you know, this treatment in Madrid, and then a few months later you go for this treatment in Valencia, you want to have the same treatment, the same experience, right? So
Yes, I didn't think about
consistency.
it.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Amazing. Wow. So you have to know also about massage techniques and all sorts of things like that.
Yeah, and that's the lovely thing about beauty translation, actually. There's a lot of crossover with other areas then. So, you know, biology or chemistry, you need to know how, you know, the different body parts, but also how certain ingredients interact with the skin. The chemical processes that happen when you put this
Wow.
ingredient on skin. Regulatory, you know, if you're launching a new product, you need to make sure that it meets the regulations, the cosmetics regulations.
Mhm.
Um,
So
yeah,
you're the one who does
massage.
that check, right? That the regulations in Spanish are a certain way, so you have to go and check the equivalent regulations in English. I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
for the UK in this case.
well, currently the UK is governed or follows the same regulations as the EU ones, although we left, you
Mm.
know, following Brexit. Currently, as far as I understand it, they're the same. Whether they deviate in the future, whether they change is another matter.
Mm.
But Um, I mean, I'm not an expert on cosmetics regulations.
Of course.
I do try to read and have some basic understanding, but there's an awful lot of information on the EU websites about the cosmetics regulations and changes and things. And there's a surprising amount of changes, right? They're constantly adding, you know, or banning ingredients then from cosmetics or changing things. So that's another thing you need to stay on top of, you know. Although it's the brand's responsibility to make sure they are complying with regulations. It's important as a translator that you do have some kind of basic understanding so that you can spot
Mm.
anything that may be amiss, you know?
Wow. Exactly, that's the thing. When we think about something, we don't think about the technical details involved. And then when you get into doing it, it's like you're faced with all sorts of new challenges you never thought possible,
Yeah.
right? And the
Yeah,
thing is how to respond to that, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
that's why I guess an amount of prepping prior to actually taking on these jobs, or but as you said, sometimes things just happen in such a way that you cannot really control how you prepare for things, but then you have to act on it or else you can't sustain the activity, right?
yeah.
So if someone, before we go, if someone is watching us and thinking, oh, this is something I've always been interested in, I have some knowledge because I use a lot of products, not my case, uh some knowledge, let's say, but I mean, not technical knowledge or anything like that. So, what kind of pointers should they have in mind before affirming that they're ready to actually take on, let's say, luxury or even a beauty language work?
Okay, so obviously you need a basic understanding of. Let's focus on beauty because that's what I do, right?
Mhm. Sure.
You need a basic understanding of the different beauty concepts, the different ingredients, the different products, the different techniques, devices available, and it's so broad now. There's constantly, you know, new things being added to the market. Um, there's a lot of information online. There's so much information online, so. What I would say is make sure that you get your information, your knowledge, you learn from authoritative resources, from, you know, from reliable resources then. Because I mean everyone can be a beauty influencer now, right? And there's so much misinformation online. So make sure that you learn from I don't know. Brands like L'Oreal, for example, there's an awful lot of information on
Hmm.
their website. They've got blogs, lots of useful information on terminology. Um, yeah, so make sure that you're hot on your terminology. You stay on top of your trends. That you're learning. Um, you're keeping up to date with things. Other than that, I mean, the to be a translator, you need to be a good writer in your target language, right? not everyone can be a translator. The fact
Right.
that, you speak two different languages doesn't make you a translator. You need to be a good writer. You need to be able to communicate and reflect, replicate the tone of voice of the brand you're translating for. So, practice your writing skills. Read a lot. The more you read, the more you learn, the more you get a sense of different registers. What else?
I guess that's why the things that you love are your more obvious potential niches,
Yeah,
right?
right. And often you don't know until you try, right? Often we might have an idea of what we can do, what we want to do, what we should be doing, but you might try something new and think, oh my gosh, I'm really good at this actually. I really enjoy it. So give it a go. I mean, even if you take some texts off the internet or from a magazine or whatever and have a go at translating it into your language, see how it works for you. Practice. Um, Another thing, I mean, speak to other beauty translators, network, ask questions. That's the best way to learn, I think, as a translator, is to speak to other translators.
Mhm.
Um, you
It's a bit
know,
old school attitude if you don't get involved with other people who do the same thing that you do, because there's a lot of
yeah,
value in that, obviously. So I guess the institution that you somehow represent, right? The ITI is very involved in that. And I love doing networking events for whatever reason, right? I'm always ready for them. And it's always to
yeah,
talk about the same subject anyway, because this is how we live, right? So we live to talk about the stuff that we love, which happens to be the thing that we do for work. I guess that's
oh
what
yeah. I mean,
joins us into this very special community, right?
networking is so important. And on that, I mean, on learning from colleagues, you could also find a mentor. If you are really keen to get into a particular niche, beauty in my case, look for a mentor, someone who already works in this area and see if they can offer you some advice or give you feedback on your translations. Peer reviews are another great thing. So, get a group of translators together and practice your translations together, get feedback on each other's
Wow,
work. It's a
that's
great way
new
to, no,
for
it's
me.
it's it's a lot of people are in peer review groups and they
Wow.
really do work. You get a different point of view. No two translators will, translate a text the same, right? So often, you look at a
Yes, of
colleague work and
course.
think, oh, that's brilliant. Why didn't I think of that? It's great for expanding your mind, learning again, getting other points of view. So um yeah, there's no sort of one tip really. There's lots of things you can do to
Yeah,
improve your
taking
knowledge.
advantage of new technologies in the best way possible, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've got to be honest, I don't use AI that much. I've only dabbled with it because, well, I feel that I've got a bit of AI fatigue. There's so much talk about it, right? I can't really, yeah.
Fatigue from
So,
talking.
oh my gosh, yeah, there's much talk about AI in our profession. So, but yeah, I mean, AI, if you use it as a learning tool, as a research tool, it can be really, really helpful. But again, check your resources.
Yes, that's always what you need to do. This is why talking to other people, it's such an important way of actually enhancing your skills as a professional and also to enhance your skills as a communicator, because more and more we need this part of our lives to be somehow present in our daily activities, right? That we somehow go places, we talk to people, because everything is much much harder to get across these days with so much noise. So being able to talk to people, practicing with your friends, your peers, this speaking in public, going to networking events,
Yeah,
joining networking groups, peer review groups, anything you want. Things
yeah,
that
yeah.
make you come out of a shell, because they say that people in the language industry or translators are usually very shy. They're like introverts, whatever, whatever. I don't agree with that at all, but that's what they say. Maybe it's true for a lot of people.
Yeah, maybe.
Definitely not true for me, but and a lot of people that I know. But yes, do what you can in order to make yourself notice, not in the sense that you want to
Yeah,
be,
yeah,
showing off to everyone, but acknowledge your own presence, right? Because sometimes we don't do that enough. We don't acknowledge our own existence and presence in a niche or a conference or a networking event or whatever it is. And being with other people will definitely help everyone come out of their shell and be present in life
oh,
and work
definitely.
at the same time. So this will help you all around in your life, right?
Oh, 100%. And you know what? I agree with you about translators being introverts. I don't think we are really. Not all of us, anyway. And I've been to many translation events or conferences, meetups, and the room is just buzzing. Everyone's
Yeah.
talking, and you're with your tribe. Everyone's happy. It's a lovely place to be. But on that, on shouting about what you do, if you are interested in a particular niche, a particular subject area, post about it on LinkedIn or on your blog or on a podcast, whatever it may be. Talk about it so people know that you do specialize in this area, or you know your stuff. And if people hear it and see it enough, they'll associate a particular niche with you. And then, hopefully then you will get referred for work in that niche, or, a
Like I
colleague say,
associate
can you help
beauty
me
and
with it?
luxury with you.
Well, yeah, exactly. It does work, I do this on LinkedIn. I often post about beauty concepts, beauty terminology, and as a result, people have referred work to me, so it does work.
So if you want to do
Um,
this, first great step is to follow Laura's work and get involved in the things that she does. And there's a group of other very interesting people that I've met many of them. So get involved and get into the groove of beauty and luxury. Thank you so much, Laura. So it's been great talking to you a little bit deeper into the work that you actually do. And this has been great. Thank you so much for being here once again. And I'm sure there's other occasions we're going to be speaking about beauty. So thank you so much.
you're welcome. Thanks for having me.